Hey guys, episode 2 of Lifting the Hat Shoes in Team Fortress 2 today. I'm going to hit craft right about now. And we got this little ninja costume for the scout. I kind of made my guy look a little bit like what I think the TMNT arcade ninjas, the Foot Clan, looks like. We're going with the back scratcher, Mad Milk, and the bat. I don't know, I feel like the back scratcher is kind of the scout spy gameplay. And basically, this video, I don't really want to talk about the game too much. I kind of want to talk a bit more about another topic that's come up this week, and it's kind of around Overwatch. Overwatch had, like a few days ago, a big release that they're having this massive Season 15 update that's coming to the game. And you might not know this based on my channel, but I was a huge Overwatch fanatic. I loved playing it. It was the game that I think took me away from playing other games like Counter-Strike or Team Fortress 2 for a period of my life. I just loved Overwatch for its look, the mechanics, its characters. I mean, even how well optimized that game is. That's one thing that people do not commend Overwatch enough for. They had this big update. Overwatch 2 is kind of the new version of the game. The original Overwatch from back in the day doesn't exist anymore. And a lot's changed. The world that game series of a class-based shooter that Overwatch occupied is no longer in existence anymore, or isn't as prominent as it used to be. Overwatch really was at one point the Tf2 Killer, quote unquote, which I know that sounds crazy to think about nowadays, but back in the day when Overwatch 1 was coming out, it was going to be the Tf2 Killer. It was going to be the thing that was going to take away all the Tf2 fans. Basically, everyone's going to be a big Overwatch guy. Those games are really nothing alike. They're similar to a point, but in reality, the gameplay and the mechanics and the minutia of either or is totally different. But they're both really fun. I still like both of them a lot, and it's interesting to see though the direction that Overwatch has taken in the course of its life as a game. For starters, I wish I could really talk about what Overwatch 1 was like, but it doesn't exist anymore. Overwatch 2 is really just a lot more of the same with Overwatch 1, and I'll get more into detail about how Overwatch 1 is technically coming back. But let's kind of go through a few things that I think are interesting about this new update. For starters, there's a perk system now with some of these characters. So you basically have the ability to have like a secondary aspect of your abilities, or even like kind of a buff in certain regards to your character now. To my understanding, you only get to have 2 perks per game, and you get to pick in the games as to what the perks might be. So that's interesting. I guess the reason I think that we're adding this perk system now to the game is for one reason, and I think that's to remove or to mitigate the rock paper scissors aspect of Overwatch in general. A big part of playing Overwatch, and one of the reasons I kind of fell out of love with it and what got really annoying about playing it over the years, was that the game has a very big mechanic around countering your opponent, like by picking a certain class or picking a certain character to counter your character's selection. So, for example, like if you're running a Genji, you run a Winston to counter them, a Symmetra, or a Moira, etc., etc. You get the point. That's a great system, I think, in a game where everyone's working together. However, unfortunately, you could always get stuck into a game where people are not working together and are kind of doing their own thing and refuse to switch off. And I think that was a big problem that I had with Overwatch as a game and playing that game competitively. It would be very frustrating to play with teammates who were just not willing to be cooperative and not willing to be, team players. So I think this perk system actually, in a way, is supposed to mitigate that tremendously. I think that Overwatch wants people to have more fun with their game. That seems to be the big be-all, end-all with everything that was talked about in this video, is that we're really, I think, stepping away from competitive, everyone, working together, being on the mic constantly. We're here to compete and win. I think now it's moving towards we're here to compete and win, but have mostly fun doing it. Like, that seems to be the big directive of this perks decision, in my opinion. I think we're moving towards a future where you can play as a Genji and still have people who counter you on the other team, but because of your perks, it might be a bit easier to, play through that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I'm excited to see what perks look like for Roadhog. That was my favorite guy to play as in the game. Another favorite was Mei. I love playing as both of those. So I think that's going to be fun. I think that's going to add a nice dynamic to the game, and also, hopefully, my theory is that it's going to mitigate the whole rock, paper, scissors aspect of Overwatch. So the whole meta and composition and everything is resetting, which, I mean, that's an interesting way to get people to come back to the game. I'm certainly going to give it a shot once that season comes out. I might even try to just reset my file or my whole like profile that I had with Overwatch. I don't know. I do also have some pretty cool skins and a lot of history with that account, so we'll see. And also the loot boxes. So yay, if you care about skins a whole lot, super duper. This whole update does seem to be with the focus of driving people to come back to try Overwatch again and maybe stick with Overwatch a little bit. I know Marvel Rivals took a big chunk out of that. I just don't really care to play Marvel Rivals. I already have Deadlock and, you know, Team Fortress 2, and I had just to add, I don't know, I'm not a big Marvel guy. That end of story there. I think one thing that's really interesting about Overwatch as a game is that I think a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the tools that allow users to create their own game modes or even alter the character personalities and the effects of certain abilities is really the big technical leap that Overwatch has developed. The fact that you could like play a fishing minigame in Overwatch, game modes that fans make, is really, I think, the driving force of what makes Overwatch so technically impressive as a game. And it really seems like that is the unsung hero of this update announcement. It really feels like those capabilities of Overwatch are going to be even tenfold now moving forward. So I'm excited to see what that turns out. I hope we get an even better fishing game. The other thing that was interesting was the stadium mode. And to be transparent, I'm not too crazy about the stadium mode. And I'll get into reasons why personally I'm not. But I think that could be an interesting development with the Overwatch game itself, Overwatch 2. The stadium mode looks cool, but it seems like it's kind of more of a direct response to what Deadlock is as a game. I honestly don't know how I feel about it, and I really don't know if I want to get too involved in that. I really like Overwatch's like minutia of game, and I really want to stick with that, even with the perks. Adding a bunch of like abilities to buy and currencies to keep track of, et cetera, doesn't sound like my kind of thing. But who knows? That could be someone else's thing entirely. I said that about Deadlock, and I'm still playing tons of Deadlock, so. But here's some issues that I might have with Overwatch in the stadium mode. Number one, the abilities encounters to other abilities seems like some of the perks might have that kind of problem where, you know, you end up in that rock, paper, scissors, shoot mentality again with Overwatch where certain perks or certain abilities counter other abilities really well. So that's one worry I have. The third-person perspective, that looks cool, but I really feel more comfortable with the first person. I'm hoping, and it sounds like in the trailer, that's going to be allowed. You could do first and third person, so I'm probably going to stick with just first person for that specifically, but we'll see. I do wonder how other abilities like Roadhog's hook would work with that camera perspective, because so much of that was, you know, your perspective when landing those hooks as Roadhog. So we'll see how that pans out, but my other thing that I'm not really excited about with Stadium is that there's 7 rounds. Geez, I don't know if I want to commit to a longer competitive kind of style game. That 7 rounds sounds like a lot. Even if they're like 3 minutes apiece, that could, with overtimes and stuff and team changes and blah, 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 7 rounds seems like a lot. The last thing I'm worried about with Stadium Mode is kind of just the aspect of Stadium Mode existing. And I'll kind of explain what I mean. You know, it sounds like there's a lot of different competitive modes or a lot of different modes that Overwatch is coming out with. My worry is that that's going to end up kind of cannibalizing its own marketplace or its own user base. Hear me out. Like, let's say there's 10,000 people playing at any given time Overwatch. So those 10,000 people, like, will all be separated into custom games, quick play, competitive for 6v6, competitive for 5v5, just even like random game events, blah, 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 blah. So you might get into a situation where certain game modes, like this stadium style game mode, or who knows, maybe even like things like competitive, classic traditional 5v5 competitive or whatever, might have longer queue times simply because they're dissecting their, core base so much. Who knows? Queue times and wait times are not something that you really want to have in a major blockbuster multiplayer game like Overwatch. So we'll see how they do that, but that's these are some of the things I'm just worried about. Who knows? Overwatch could prove to be totally wrong. This update could come out, be a massive success, and these problems might not even be a real thing. But based on what I'm looking at, this is just what my anticipations might be. I think the last thing that I'll touch on that they talk about in this video is map reworks. Kind of sick. Overwatch, in my opinion, never had the most balanced or coherent maps. Sometimes you would get stuck in these like annoying stalemates see Anubis for what I mean by that. So yeah, hopefully we can see Anubis reworked and fixed, and maybe Anubis could become great again or whatever. I think right now the race for most video games right now is we're trying to build a dopamine center for these games, essentially, where everything that happens will be the clip that moment. You know what I mean? Instead of driving for, hey, do you want to become a pro? I think we're all moving towards where games have that moment where it's all, oh my god, that was awesome, clip that, get a clip. And that kind of comes with these alts, that kind of comes with these abilities, some of these hero shooter mechanics. So I don't know. I know I'm showing Team Fortress 2 gameplay, and it's funny to think that the nature of Team Fortress 2 generates those clip that moments. But they're manufactured completely organically, not like how Overwatch or even Deadlock is, where they're tied to abilities or they're tied to perks you have to buy, or they're tied to the timing of the actual game. A lot of interesting stuff, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited, but that's essentially the video here. I'm going to end on essentially this game here where we draw, actually. And but I appreciate you guys watching. Real quick, before I wrap it up, be sure to comment what you think the next reroll for the next video will be. If you guessed what the class is, and then you can also label and put in the comments what weapons I try to use based on the next hat that we rework or the next hat that we build and whatnot. But that's it. Yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and have a good day. Bye.